Hello dear friends. Zimbabwe's launch of gold coins has been a resounding success, leading other countries to follow suit, such as the gold coin of the colony of Gibraltar. But the biggest global revolution will be the quantum economy. Opinion piece. Struggle for quantum supremacy. US, China and Europe compete for it. We are living through an arms race. The global balance would be drastically disrupted. There is an economic and political agency to achieve it. In a single morning, one company will achieve hegemony. Achieving it will mark the beginning of a new economy. Latin America doesn't behave as a bloc and is disintegrated. Spanish and Americans are divided, confronted and polarized. This division is our greatest weakness as a great cultural power. Putin promises $16,000 to Russian mothers for having 10 children. UN, IAEA and NATO warn of nuclear risk from attack on Zaporiyia. Chilean physicists succeed in enclosing light and controlling it through optical caging. Let's start. There is an arms race for quantum supremacy. Quantum computing is already here in some form, although it is estimated that full completion will take decades. But in 5 years, quantum technology is expected to begin to be commercialized with benefits. Achieving it will usher in new quantum economy that will solve many problems, but may create a deeper knowledge gap than today, according to David Nicolas Olivieri Cecchi, professor of computer science at the University of Vigo, Spain. The event called quantum supremacy occurs when a quantum computer can solve a problem in minutes, hours or weeks, which in practical terms is impossible for a classical computer that would take hundreds, thousands or millions of years. Time is reduced from thousands of years to minutes. In a single morning, one company will have achieved absolute global technological and economic hegemony. In the meantime, experts will warn of dangerous dual-use scenarios of this powerful technology for humankind. Today, on a given day in 2022, the world is unprepared for the socio-economic, ethical and practical risks that will come to light. That day will fundamentally change the future for better or worse. Quantum computing will have an enormous impact on all modern industries, from scientific research and development to financial analysis, healthcare, cryptography, communications, weather forecasting, drug design, agriculture, logistics, and product development, optimization, and defense industries that now depend on computational modeling using today's supercomputers. It is hard to imagine the power of any one company achieving quantum supremacy, or any one country. It would drastically upset the global balance. There is an economic and political agency to achieve it. In fact, we are living in an arms race to be the first to achieve quantum advantage, if not supremacy, similar to the Manhattan Project's quest for the atomic bomb. In this war, the US and China are competing for the lead, and Europe is trying not to be left out. Reset news. The plan of the globalists is to crater the economy so that they can exercise authoritarian control over the population. These are only a handful of military intelligence. There are only a handful of military intelligence who would be informed when the liquidity release takes place, and they don't talk. The date would be decided by the quantum brain and would be based on safety consents for the public. As of this year, Saudi Arabia is moving away from the petrodollar and is seeking to back its oil in the gold-based Chinese yuan. The only solution to end the global conflict is the new international currency both in cyberspace and in real life, according to Mid-Hemisphere. The coalition originally included 17 countries: Australia, France, Hungary, Germany, Poland, Romania, Spain, and the Netherlands, Norway, Russia, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Croatia, Canada, North Korea, and the US. It is now believed to be composed of leaders from the 209 nations participating in the global financial restart. Sectors affected by the crisis. The 5 sectors most affected by the energy crisis are industrial and green metals, steel, fertilizers, and sugar producers. Central banks start to panic over cryptocurrencies, according to X22 report. Why you must challenge the system and the group collective, according to Kit Daniels. It's time for you to reach the next level. When you are imprisoned by the group collective, you are allowing other people to dominate your life. Former Greenpeace president Dr. Patrick Moore says the elite have a suicide pact to reduce the world's population. In quotes, "We are now faced with a situation where a lot of very powerful organizations and elites internationally and nationally are calling for policies that are basically a suicide pact, basically a death wish of some kind." Close quotes. DNA pirates. To the pirates of the sacred spiral, you are a vulnerable mortal enterprise. They have plundered your most precious treasure and claimed the vessel of your soul. They have buried humankind's most valuable truths. The pirates now secure the most powerful map of life. It guarantees them your richest inheritance, the DNA, the mortal code, the sacred spiral. Supreme Pact. According to Kimberly Gogan, the Supreme Pact, known as the Source Pact, led to the creation of the dark side of the multiverse and its battle with the light over the last 300 million years. It was a pact that was supposed to automatically renew itself every 1008 years, unless it met with opposition. On 7th January 2022, this covenant was terminated. According to Jonas Hebing, in the occult, they believe that there is physical world that we occupy and the spiritual world on the other side, and there are doors. And if you can open that door, then the spiritual and ethereal world can come into our world, and we can interact in their world. The arches are a gateway. Arches are a gateway. There is a copy of the Ark brought from Syria that was destroyed by Daesh, the Ark of Baal. This exact copy was made by the Institute of Digital Archaeology. They are trying to bring demons into this world because they believe it gives them power. USA. Some 700,000 Latinos will have access to health premium under the new US law. Trump CFO Allen Weisselberg pleads guilty to tax scheme and will testify against the Trump organization. Trump hints he will attack Clinton and Obama when he retakes the White House. FBI begins arresting those who threatened them after their Mar-a-Lago raid. Americas. Latin America does not behave as a bloc and is disintegrated. It is not integrated, and this is a problem for the multilateral system of the future, which will be made up of blocs, said former Colombian President Ernesto Samper. The left and the right should be flexible in order to unite Latin America, says former Uruguayan President José Mujica. The shortcoming of Spaniards and Latin Americans is that we are divided, confronted, and politically polarized, and this lack of unity is our weakness. Indigenous struggle in the Americas. The struggle of indigenous peoples have achieved legislative advances unthinkable decades ago, with plurinational constitutions and recognized rights, but assassination of leaders, discrimination, and territorial disputes continue to be a threat. Violent encroachment on indigenous lands in Brazil is on the rise, with almost 1,300 attacks in 2021. A highly polarized election campaign begins in Brazil. Bolsonaro struggles with an influenza and tries to take away his mobile phone after he provoked him with uncomfortable questions. Lula sues evangelical pastor who claims he will close churches if he returns to power. The Spanish group AENA takes over the management of 11 Brazilian airports. The World Bank reported in Uruguay that up to 30 June this year, it had provided Latin America and the Caribbean with more than $20.7 billion to tackle the economic slowdown, inflation, and food insecurity. Progressive Alliance fights for greater democratization in Paraguay. Paraguay's vice president accused of corruption will not resign without evidence. Puerto Rico's governor expresses dissatisfaction with electricity distribution company. Mexican tortilla crisis due to price increase and producers at risk. López Obrador regrets the fatal accident involving South American migrants in Mexico. Mexico withholds information on the landing of the plane with Venezuelan-Iranian crew. The man who lived through Felipe Calderón's drug war is locked up. In 2008, Rafael Méndez Valenzuela was arrested by the police at a checkpoint near Mexico City. This story is the story of thousands of Mexicans who remain in prison without having committed any crime, sometimes without a sentence or with flawed judicial processes. With China's investment, southern Argentina aims for self-sufficiency in fertilizers. The Argentine province of Tierra del Fuego has reached an agreement with the Chinese province of Shanxi to install a plant capable of producing more than 900,000 tons of urea and synthetic ammonia. Tons of lemons are rotting in Argentina due to export problems as a result of a decision by the European Union and the loss of prices in the domestic market. The crisis has left some 300,000 tons of lemons unharvested and could affect 40,000 workers. Fires in the Paraná Delta in Argentina ravaged more than 10,000 hectares. Exchange rate crisis in Argentina. The Argentine economy has once again entered a cycle of deep financial turmoil that is reflected in the value of the dollar in relation to the peso. The difference between the official exchange rate and the financial and parallel dollars is more than 130%, according to Argentine economist Alfredo Zayat. Chile introduces an avant-garde right to memory in the new constitution. The Consumer Price Index recorded a monthly increase of 1.4% in July, with a cumulative rise of 8.5% so far in 2022 and 30.1% over 12 months, its highest figure since the beginning of 1994. Chilean physicists have succeeded in engaging light and controlling it through a phenomenon known as optical caging, which could make it possible to build and replace devices that run on electricity. Zelensky speaks in Chile. after Mercosur refused to offer a platform to the Ukrainian President, Volodymyr Zelensky managed to get the Pontifical Catholic University of Chile to give him the opportunity to speak to the region for the first time. The 9 huecas from El Bosque mine in central Colombia have been rescued thanks to the work of the community and aid services, assistance services. Clashes between armed groups left some 300 people displaced in Colombia. Is total peace possible in Colombia? Total peace is one of the main objectives of the new Colombian government, but it is very difficult. Petro tax reform in search of equity. He aims to raise revenues of $26 billion by 2023, equivalent to 1.8% of Colombia's GDP. Colombia expects the full reopening of its border with Venezuela to be completed in 2 months. Venezuela's economy improves. Citizens' expectations are growing regarding the recovery process of the Venezuelan economy. The flooding of the Uruari River in the south of Venezuela in the state of Bolívar leaves 13 areas affected. More than 400 families affected by flooding in western Venezuela. Venezuela denounces that the fire in a dialysis supplies warehouse was arson. An NGO demands the renewal of the mandate of the United Nations missions for Venezuela. Ortega closes 3 more radio stations in Nicaragua, bringing the total to 13 in August. Where will Nicaragua place the sugar that the US refuses to buy? The Nicaraguan government sends food donations to Cuba. Addressing inflation and curbing the deficit, the Cuban government's objectives. Cuba announces the opening of its strait for foreign investment for the first time in 60 years. The Catholic Church in Peru asks the state and society to find a way out of the crisis. Peru's Prime Minister appears before Congress for allegedly inciting violence in favor of President Castillo. Peruvian justice rejects a petition to free Castillo's sister-in-law. Peru breaks off relations with the Sahrawi Arab Republic and withdraws its recognition. The importation of medicines renews hope for small pharmacies in Panama. Relatives of detainees reject the extension of the state of emergency in El Salvador. Haitian police accuse Episcopal Church priest of arms trafficking. The OAS blames others for the situation in Haiti. The Organization of American States made a surprising statement in which it described the intervention of the international community as a failure, although it ignored its responsibility for this interference. Detainee admits involvement in Ecuador explosion. Minister says Honduras extradites drug trafficker José Luis Oliva to the US. US mega embassy in Honduras. The largest embassy in Central America and one of the largest in the world is under construction. The huecas leader, Adolfo Alvarez, denounced that the company contracted to carry out this work is treating 1,100 huecas without paying them the bonuses they are entitled to in accordance with national labor legislation, while also failing to look after their health. In addition to not paying its employees properly, it is common for the company to throw injured workers out of work. The Bolivian government's objective is to industrialize lithium and other metals in order to achieve import substitution. Peasants from the Sala de Uyuni presented their proposal for a lithium law in Bolivia. Bolivia's urea plant reaches full capacity and produces 2,100 tons per day. The president of Bolivia's state oil company says In quotes, there are plans to work with Russia. Scientific expedition discovers 9 unknown species in Bolivian Amazon. How many unknown species will be destroyed before their existence is discovered? How many medicinal plants will be banned before their properties are discovered? Spain. The big Spanish banks earn 5,660 million in commissions up to June, a 21% increase. Spanish public debt rises in June and rebounds to an all-time high of 1,475 billion. Weather conditions complicate firefighting in Spain. The unstoppable fires in Valdebo and Bellis burned more than 21,000 hectares. The Añón del Moncayo fire is still stabilized and awaiting extinguishing. Forest restoration work has begun on 5 watercourses after the first major fire in Zamora. Iberdrola intends to design offshore wind farms that protect nature. The Spanish government drags the country into a debacle. The Algerian government has decided to break the Treaty of Friendship, Good Neighbor Lines, and cooperation with Spain. The causes? The president's turnaround on the Western Sahara issue by deciding to support the subordination of that village to Morocco, writes Javier Benitez. While Spain made a blunder, Germany sent its number 2 foreign minister to Algiers to sign new energy agreements. Spain has not fulfilled its role as administrator of the Saharan territory assigned by the United Nations. Europe. The price of electricity in the European Union reaches an all-time high. The price of electricity in Germany reaches a record of 557 euros megawatt hour. Eurozone inflation reaches an all-time high of 8.9% in July. The Eurozone economy holds its own in the first half of the year. France has arrested 26 suspected arsonists so far this summer. Mali accuses France of supporting terrorism on its territory and takes the matter to the United Nations. London launches a dispute with the European Union over access to scientific programs. UK CPI climbs to 10.1% in July, the highest rate in over 40 years. Manchester United shares rise after Musk's joke about buying the club. New Zealand raises interest rates to 3%, the highest levels in 2015. Ukraine. United Nations chief believes there is no solution to the food crisis without Russian and Ukrainian products. 3 ships carrying 33,000 tons of agricultural products leave Ukrainian ports. Grain shipments from Ukrainian ports exceeded 622,000 tons in August. Erdogan wants to discuss with Putin the results of his meeting with Zelensky. Russia. Russia finds new buyers for its coal rejected by Europe in China and India. Russia evacuates more than 26,000 civilians from Ukraine to and Donbass in one day. Russia admits for the first time attacks in Crimea. It is Kiev's new target. Crimean air defense systems shoot down a drone near Belbek airport in Sevastopol. Russia deploys Kinzhal hypersonic missiles in Kaliningrad for permanent guard. Putin promises $16,000 to Russian mothers for having 10 children. Russia is 6 months into its war with Ukraine, and the end seems nowhere near. The conflict has cost thousands of lives on both sides. Although the exact figures are not known, Ukrainians claim that Putin has lost more than 41,000 military personnel since the conflict began. Perhaps because of this, and also because of the social and political context, the Russian president has decided to revive a measure that was in place in the country for many decades, but disappeared with the fall of the Soviet Union. Rewarding large families. We are not talking about having 3 children, but 10 or more, as the Newsweek reports. Nuclear attack. United Nations, IAEA and NATO warn of nuclear risk from attack on Zaporiyia power plant. Who is blocking the visit of international inspectors to the Zaporiyia nuclear power plant? Only one of the 6 reactors is operating at the Zaporiyia nuclear power plant. Ukraine opens heavy artillery fire on the Zaporiyia nuclear power plant. Russia accuses Ukraine of preparing a catastrophe at the Zaporiyia nuclear power plant. Ukraine appears to intend to stage an industrial disaster at the Zaporiyia nuclear plant, involving a radiation leak, destroying the integrity of the nuclear waste storage facility and putting the reactor of the nuclear power plant in an abnormal operating state. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.